Okay. First of all, thanks for the couple of you that came to the CS get together yesterday. We had pretty crappy voter turnout, so make sure you look for the announcement for that in the fall. We do it every semester, and there's prizes and all sorts of stuff. It's a pretty decent time with some pretty good free prizes, so it's definitely worth coming to. So hopefully everybody knew about it and had some sort of good reason not to come. I know there's like sports practices and stuff. A lot of time we try to do it over the lunch hour, but that didn't work out this semester. So but for future reference, keep your eyes open for that CS get together thing that we do. All right, so let's wrap up what we were talking about last time. If you remember, at the end of class, I suggested we had a timing issue, and just to kind of reiterate that, what we had gone through and done, and I think we can mess around with it and probably get it to time correctly. I think Hunter actually said that his did work, so we probably just need to move everything into like the correct awake or something like that. Where the issue was is as our guys were moving from different rooms, the boxes were disappearing, but what was happening is that the order in which we added a trigger wasn't necessarily equivalent to the order we added the equivalent room. So what might have happened is like bucket 0, for example, might have been this trigger, but might have been this room for those game objects. So we need to sync those up or get them to know about each other. And that's kind of where I want to start with today. And then I want to pivot and start looking at using some Unity assets to do some things. So let's just look at this kind of quickly, and you'll see how it works. And you'll probably kick yourself a little bit for how easy the solution could have been. But if you go into your prefabs, and we go into room, and I've already actually done this on mine here. Now, remember that all of our rooms have a room trigger in it, and we have a room trigger script associated with that. So what I did is up top is I created a public game object called the room game object. I want to teach all of my room triggers who their governing game object is. So by making this public and then going to my prefab, when I click on room trigger, one of the things he wants to know about is, oh, can I delete this for a second? Yeah, there we go. One of the things he wants to know about is his corresponding room game object. So what I can do is I can go up to this top level and drag that over there. So now my room trigger, the script that he owns, knows about the whole room object that belongs to him. Okay, now if I go ahead and save, and I go back here, and we just go ahead and look back at our map. If I go to room 1, notice that the room trigger here knows about room 1. If I go to room 4, notice the room trigger here knows about room 4. So every room trigger knows about their room. There's another way you can accomplish this. You can, since all rooms are all game objects are transforms. A transform is actually, a game object is actually a collection of game objects. So you can actually walk the tree of game objects, and you can ask a room trigger game object, who is your parent? And their parent is a room. So you can get to it that way, but this is a pretty easy way to do it. Just saying, hey, for every room trigger, go ahead and let him know about the room he's in, the physical room he's in. So then all we would need to do is, if we go back into our scripts here, I think we were doing this in core where we're actually doing the destroy. So I'm just going to not do the destroy in here. I think somebody had mentioned using on trigger exit last time. So instead of doing the trigger on the lookup we were doing last time, we were getting the index of a certain room trigger. I'm going to go ahead and go into room trigger script. And I have an on trigger exit in here, which is very similar to on trigger enter. On trigger exit happens whenever one of our colliders, so player or enemy, exits that particular trigger. So what am I going to do? I'm going to destroy the room associated with this room trigger. So by doing that, we should now have the correct rooms dropping off as it's going around. So on and so forth. So actually a pretty easy solution that didn't even require programming or very much programming to accomplish it by just letting a, so really the kicker there for us, let me make sure I am. The kicker there for us is that in a prefab, you can let one of the scripts know about another game object in that prefab, and that's a way that you can connect those guys. So pretty handy way of handling this for this particular problem. All right, any questions about that? All right, so we're actually going to start a new project today. This is based on a conversation I had yesterday, as well as some folks are having some issues with their GitHub. So apparently the git ignore for Git desktop, and we're also going to look at some Unity assets today. So I'm going to teach you how to bring better looking stuff into your game. So some of you have, well, so with Git desktop, one of the issues we have right now is that the git ignore for Unity will not recursively go through your directory structure. So what we had done previously is I had created a folder in my repos folder, and then I created a Unity project to put in there. Apparently the correct way to do this is actually to create the Unity project first, then establish a Git repository in that folder. So we're going to go ahead and do that today as a starting point. So I'm going to go ahead and close this project. And I'm going to close these files as well. We're going to have some new files once we're in here. So go back to Unity Hub. And we're going to go ahead and create a new project. And this is going to be a 3D project. And by the way, when we start this new thing, we only have a week left, so we're not going to get real far into this. But imagine, and since we don't have, and we have a bunch of VR headsets you can test this with, so if you wanted to play this way, you could. But imagine the game we're going to make in VR. I think it'd be pretty cool. I'm sure somebody's done it, but I think I'll probably keep going through the motions and make it. It'd be a fun thing to play in VR. But we're going to create a 3D core, and we are going to call this guy Pac Man. And the location for this looks like I already have it in repos. So I just want to put it in the repos folder here. And I'll go ahead and create the project. Okay, so that's our starter project here. Now let's go ahead and create our Git repository. So I'm going to go into Git desktop. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and commit those final changes to the project we just finished. Let's call it final changes. And I'll push that to our origin. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to add a local repository. I believe this is the way we're going to end up doing it. And it's asking me for the path to that. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my repos folder and go to my Pac Man folder. So you're going to put it at the top level here of your directory for Unity. All right, so does that mean I want to create a repository here instead? So maybe I could have created a repository. In fact, let me just back up for a second and make sure that's the way to do it. So I'm going to create a new repository. See, I don't. Is that the way it's going to work? So if I say Pac Man here and then I choose the local path, it's going to create a new folder. And that's not what I want. Give me a moment. See, if we were doing this from a command line with GitHub, we would say just git init in that folder. Excuse me. I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I went to CD downloads, and we're not going to do it this way, but I'll just show you that Git desktop is a wrapper for a program called Git. So if I go to downloads, repos, Pac Man, and then if I were to do a git init in here, it would create a Git repository with this Pac Man folder as the base folder. If you were using command line GitHub. So I want to see what's the equivalent way of doing that in here. Jesus. Okay. When I say add local repository, let's just go down that path. I'm in Pac Man. See, I feel like this is going to create a new folder inside of there called Pac Man. So we'll do a git ignore with Unity. Let's just see what it does. We can always delete the folder. I'm not going to do the git LFS thing. Let's go look at our folder now. Oh, no, I think it worked. Yeah, so this did not create a new Pac Man folder inside of here. It just created a Git repository in here. So if I were to come out here, I'm in my Pac Man folder right now. If I was going to do it ls-la, notice now I have a .git in there. So that is the way to accomplish it. Create a new repository inside that folder. And by doing that, it will not give you a fresh folder. It'll just take over that folder. So now my Git repository is in my top level. My top level of my Pac Man project folder. And now GitHub's gitignore should work with those things and upload smaller files. Does that sound accurate to you, Jake? Jake was the one.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Jake was the one that brought this to my attention, that the file sizes were too large because the gitignore was not recursively going into folders. So this should prevent that problem. Okay, so then the next new toy to play with here is you can actually do this from within Unity. Let me just hide this. Let's see if you go to way to get to the asset store from within Unity here. There used to be.
Dr. Lemon, you can get it. It's by like your scene. It's to the right between animator.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so here we have a thing called asset store. So attached to Unity is a kind of a store for people to sell 3D artifacts and stuff like that. There's a bunch of free stuff on there too. It used to be embedded inside of the Unity editor, and I guess that was hurting performance and stuff. So now they actually just host it on the web. So make sure that in Unity, you are signed in to your account for Unity. And then you can go ahead and click search online. That's going to open up a web page. And I haven't actually played with this yet, but we're going to mess with it. But there is an asset here called, I did a search for Pac Man, and it brought up a thing called ChopMan 3D. And it actually has a whole tutorial and stuff, but I think we're just going to use the 3D assets and stuff from it to build this. So here's ChopMan. It doesn't cost anything. Notice here there's other assets in here that people have made that do cost money, but a lot of them have animations and things all built into it. You know, so if you are looking at doing a game, you know, like here's a bunch of 3D characters that somebody's made with animations. So $35 is pretty cheap for that, you know, that much artwork. So try not to get freaked out by the cost of some of these things. And for those of you who are working on some side projects, if you know, there's some of these packs that would be useful, come to me and we can certainly look at purchasing some stuff with the department funds. But in any case, we're going to click on ChopMan. ChopMan is free. So make sure you then, so actually make sure you're logged into your account on here as well, because you want to make sure that the two different, that your asset store here is linked to the account you're logged into on Unity. Because when we add something to our assets, it adds it to our account. And then when we say open in Unity, it's going to open up the project manager in Unity. And notice I have a whole bunch of things in here. But the one I want is called ChopMan. So it's down here. So it's ChopMan 3D game kit and tutorial. And like I said, we're not going to go through the tutorial unless we get desperate. We're just going to look at what an asset pack has in it. So we're going to go ahead and click download. it's going to go ahead and download that, and then we're going to import it into our project. And usually assets have a sample scene that kind of shows how the stuff is laid out. So we might actually just use that. So we'll go ahead and hit import. All right, so it's telling me that importing a complete project will overwrite your current project settings. So that's okay. We have a blank project, and this guy isn't just an asset kit. It's also a full project, but that's okay. I think for our current thing, we're in a fresh project here. I'm going to click import. All right, it says it has some package manager dependencies, some stuff that it's relying on. So I'll just go ahead and click install and upgrade. I'm guessing it's going to download a couple of other Unity plugins. And hopefully this works out okay. If it doesn't, we'll go and look at a different asset pack for Pac Man. Let's go take a peek. If there was anything similarly as good, but this one looked pretty slick. Yeah, nothing else obvious. I mean, that's just the first page, but all right. So ultimately it pops this up and says, hey, here's all the things that we're going to add. It's adding a whole bunch of audio files and things like that. You know, something that'll make up like a full game. And, you know, it has a whole bunch of materials that are part of this. Props. That it has a whole bunch of prefabs for the different ghosts and your chomp dude and all that stuff. And it has your maze environment pieces. Those are also prefabs, so you can, you know, build out your own maze with it. And I'm guessing it's probably going to have a yeah, it's going to have it here. It has a level 1 scene that we can mess with. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit import. And we'll just bring this whole thing in here. Okay. So here's my ChopMan package. Sample scene. Is that the ChopMan one, or is that our initial scene? That's our initial scene. So it gave us a new folder here called ChopMan. And inside here we have scenes, and we have a level 1 scene. So I just double clicked on that. So here is a scene that already has, you know, it's already using a bunch of their prefabs to build out a maze. We can go ahead and hit play and see what this guy looks like. Oh, it says we have some compiler errors. We're only going to mess with those for a second if we do have compiler errors, because we might just steal what I want to steal from here. So we go to prefabs. This is our environment stuff. So I don't really want to lose that. I'm good with that. Props. Those guys should be pretty good too. Okay, these guys don't have scripts associated with them, so that's fine. So I'm going to keep all my prefabs there. We're not going to mess with any audio. So just to keep our project relatively small, I'm going to delete all the audio. We do need the materials. They're part of our prefabs. We need the meshes. We need the textures. So I'm thinking that the thing that's breaking right now is just our scenes. I'm just going to delete their scene because they have scripts and stuff. So even though it looks all pretty and lighted and all that stuff, we're going to build our own with those objects. All right, so effectively what we have is we have a bunch of visual things from ChopMan. And then we have our sample scene that we built. So here's our initial sample scene. What compiler errors do we have? I don't see anything. All right. Oh, it's using a bunch of other things from Unity. I guess it was good while it lasted. Let me go back to the asset store and see if I can find something that just gives us maze parts or something like that. And then usually you want to come over here. Choose to just show me free stuff. Let's say just show me free stuff. I filter. Just want free assets. Still surprises me how slow this website seems to always be. Let's see if we can at least steal just some of our stuff here. Go back to project. Seem to not like the meshes. So here's my prefab. So if I want chomp in there, that's my chomp dude. I could put a ghost out there. And then we have some specific variants of ghosts. And are those guys using specific meshes? Yeah, they're using ghost mesh. And this guy is using all right, Chomp's not using he's not using a mesh, so only our ghosts are using meshes. Just trying to get rid of the stuff that was causing problems. Yeah, see, I think it's using some older versions of, it must be made for an older version of Unity. There's a bunch of namespaces where things have changed. So that's on. I think that was on some of the stuff it imported into this project. I think we can actually prove that if we just do this. I'm going to delete that whole folder. So now all we have is our sample scene. So presumably we don't have very much going on in our world. We basically have our original project with whatever new things that thing made us update. Yeah, so it is something with the things that it made us bring in. I wonder if I can get rid of that conveniently. This was that thing at the beginning of, do you want to import crap into your project? Well, you know what? I wonder. Let me try something here real quick. I'm going to create a new project. I want to try to just get the assets in there and not the things that it takes to run that whole game, because we're going to write our own version of that. So we're going to call this guy Pac Man 2. And his location will be in repos. Okay. And let's make sure we have a running game. Okay, so nothing's broken to start with. All right, so now I'm gonna go back to our Pac Man. Actually, I don't need to do it from there. I can come in. Click on Asset Store, then click on Open Package Manager. This will show you the packages that you already have. So I should have this ChopMan one somewhere in here. Isn't that what he was called? Oh, I want my assets. So here's my ChopMan. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to hit import again. All right, it's telling me if I'm importing a complete project, it's going to change some settings. I'm going to go ahead and agree to that and say import. But this is the part that I'm going to skip. This Unity package has package manager dependencies. So I'm going to skip that and not bring in anything extra, because I just want to use the models that they have. Our game looks pretty. I don't want any of their logic or game building stuff. We're going to do that. Okay. Right now, all of these are just warnings about some of the meshes, the things that make stuff look pretty. I'm guessing if I just hit play on this. Okay, our game still runs good. If we go into their sample scene, that runs as well. All right, so this is a scene that has all of these things in it. Let's see. I think we have a make sure that. So this is our current scene. Here's the maze and all of its components. Those are our power pellets. Here's our characters that are in there. Here's Chomp. So Chomp does have something called a character controller in it that allows us to make him go in different directions and stuff like that. But we actually can just write our own script to make him move. What I'm interested in here, let me go back to my sample scene. And we're going to then go back to assets, go in here, go into prefabs, go into environment. All right, let's just see what we're dealing with here when we say like maze 1. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have a default maze. So we're just going to build our own thing here. Oh, we actually have some different color mazes. Neon one if you want a different color, but we'll just stick with the normal maze. Okay. Then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and maybe put our dude in there. We'll go back to prefabs here. We'll go to characters. We'll drag Chomp out here and put him in our maze. Right. So Chomp is effectively a sphere. Notice he has a sphere collider around him. So he's a sphere just like we had before. So we can go ahead and put a script on him that allows us to kind of make him move around, and he'll bump into these walls. Because one thing that this kind of introduces that's new to us is if I click on my maze here, zoom out. If I click on the whole maze, notice the maze has, you see these green things all over it, and it looks a lot like what we had like around our box colliders or our sphere collider that we had in our previous game. Well, these guys have a whole bunch of meshes. So these are called mesh colliders. And I'm guessing the colliders are, there's a mesh renderer, here's the mesh collider. So these are all the, so you see, like if I click on just that one, that's that part of it. There's another part of it. So these are all stage meshes. Okay, so these are actual colliders, but they're specially shaped for the type of thing that is there. You know, you could have built something similar using just our primitive type things and kind of drug your, you know, make some of these pill colliders, make some of them box colliders, and just made them longer or skinnier and that kind of stuff. And probably you could have accomplished something similar, but mesh colliders can be generated around a an object to make it more accurate. All right, but it's still going to act just like any other collider. So what we want to do is we want to get our dude moving around in here. And we can accomplish that in the same way that we did previously. Let's actually just start this real quick. Oh, we got to move our camera. So let's put our maze at 0, 0, 0. And then we'll put chomp initially at 0, 0, 0. Make sure that doesn't put him like inside of a wall. It sort of does. So we'll scooch him out a little bit. Okay. All right. And we want our maze. Actually, we don't need him to be a rigid body. We don't need Chomp to be, well, we do need Chomp to be a rigid body if we're going to give him velocity. So we're going to set Chomp to be a rigid body because we're going to want him to be able to move through our world. Okay. Now he does have a sphere collider. And that sphere collider should allow him to collide with other colliders, like our colliders for our maze. So hopefully he doesn't just fall through the world. We're not sure if he does yet because I have to move our camera. And we'll rotate it down a little bit. Move it over a little bit more. All right, so now we got eyes on Chomp. All right, Chomp is falling through the floor. Let me make sure we lift him off the ground just a little bit in case he was already sinking through the ground. All right, so he is not colliding with the ground. So we have mesh under all those other things, but it looks like the floor of our maze maybe is not a mesh. So that's the stage meshes, maybe stage borders. That's the outside. Okay. Oh, here's the ground. Well, the ground does have a mesh collider. Which I would think would so my Chomp sphere collider is not messing with my mesh collider. I suppose this isn't the end of the world because we don't actually need to have gravity on Chomp.
I was going to ask, sir.
Sure.
There's a 2D mesh collider. Isn't that one we'd want to use? A 2D rigid body. Sorry.
I don't think so. You mean for Chomp?
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, I don't think so because we're in a 3D thing. If we were doing a traditional Pac Man, you're right. That's a 2D scene, but this isn't. I mean, he is a 3D rigid body. We could just turn gravity off. We only need the rigid body so we can make him move.
Oh, gotcha.
So this should be fine. All right. So he's now in our world. We'll put him back there on the ground. Okay. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and push this. So you have this as a starting point. So what we want to do for Monday is just write a script that gets Chomp moving around our map, that you can drive him around the map with the arrows. So when I hit, so if I was looking at the scene right now, for example, if I hit the down arrow or the up arrow, he would move forward. And then if I hit the right arrow, he would move this way, but you don't need to make him turn. We're going to look at rotations on Monday. So he would just go forward, he would turn right, he would go to the right, he would go down, just like our guy is moving in our other game. All right, this guy just looks prettier. So I'll give you this as a starting point. So I'll go ahead and create a Git repository around this guy, because we're not going to use this current repository. So I'll create a repository. I'll put it up with the assignment. If you want to use a different thing, a different asset or something like that to build a different map, that's fine. But use something from the asset store that gives you pretty stuff like this, and then make your guy move around some sort of maze, just driving him like a car. All right, and then we'll look at rotations on Monday. All right, questions, comments, concerns, bribes? All right, I will see everybody on Monday, hopefully in person.
Have a good weekend.
Take care.
You too. Thanks.
Did you just create a repository in your game folder?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Have stuff in that folder. Since I haven't programmed anything, is it going to upload assets or just knowledge that I have the assets? So Pac Man 2 is not tracking those changes. Pac Man certainly did. I'll just keep the recording going while I'm figuring this out. The repos, getting rid of this Pac Man. Keeping Pac Man 2. I'll see if I create it that way. It does create a new folder in there. So I do need to do it the way I did it before. I'll get rid of that folder. Go back into this guy. I'm going to say add local repository, just like I did before. I'll choose the folder, which is Pac Man 2. It's going to say you don't actually have a repository here. Do you want to create one? I'll say yes. And then I'll set Unity as my git ignore. I'll create that repository. I won't initialize. Oh, okay, I will. I will initialize the LFS. Now inside of Pac Man 2, I do not have another folder. So that must have the Git repository in it. Yep, so there's my .git. So that's in there. Why is it not seeing all my changed files? Say add local repository. Choose, here's Pac Man 2, hit open.
I just made a change on mine and I got it to work following your steps.
Well, right, but it doesn't show all the things, right? It just
I
shows
have
the
to go
one
back to look.
change.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. I just undid the initial commit down here at the bottom. And now it's showing me all my assets. Oh, maybe that's it. I think it maybe did the initial commit for me. That's why it was showing me no changes. I was looking for changed files here, but it was already done. So it had already done this initial commit. So it was in this mode right here. So then all I had to do is publish the repository. We'll call this guy Pac Man. And I'll do that. Publish the repository. It's just doing it and doing it's probably going to take a little bit to upload the assets. Here's my Pac Man. It's in the process of uploading it right now. Okay. I think it should be good now once it's done uploading. So I'll put the link up so you guys can fork it. It will be interesting though to see how big the directory is. But anyway, you cut it. It'll it's uploading now. So I will see you on Monday.
Thank you.